girl, know that the wealth is on the way, okay? You are a woman of wealth. And so with that, let's get into it. What are the characteristics that I recognize within myself and that I recognize in others that would make you a woman of wealth? Hey, CourtneyLSanders here. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to me, I'm a full-time certified 7-figure online life and business coach, as well as wife and mom. I wear all the hats and do all the things. And I was really inspired to do this episode based on something I said about myself in a podcast back in like 2015, right? But I said it because I meant it, and it's always stuck with me and kind of been in the back of my head. And I said something to the effect of, I know that I am a woman of wealth, and so if I do not become wealthy, basically it'll be my own fault, because I know that I already have everything inside of me to become that. And I meant that when I said that on that podcast, again, back in 2015. I can't even remember which episode it was, so you'll just have to subscribe to my podcast and listen to all of them. If you want to find it, I would put it in the show notes for you, but I can't even remember which episode it was where I said that. But that has always been in the back of my mind because I believe that. And so part of why I focus, heavily on my own business and, again, operating with excellence and growing it, and, even now being in this really CEO mode, I talk a lot about this on my podcast in terms of my CEO series. You can check that out as well. But this is very serious for me because one of my greatest, one of my greatest fears in life is not living up to my God-given potential. Like, literally, that terrifies me. I know people have fears of all kinds of things, but I know that what I'm capable of doing, like what I'm doing even now, only scratches the surface of that. And I would never want to go my whole life never fully maxing out everything that was possible and was available for me. And so when I said this, I know that I'm a woman of wealth, I said it at that place. And again, this episode was in 2015. So I wasn't even full-time in my business. I was working my 9-to-5 job. I wasn't even making 6 figures in my 9-to-5 job. I came close right before I left. I had just gotten a promotion and left a few months later, but I wasn't even at the 6-figure salary level yet. And I was just growing my business on the side. So understand the significance of me saying that back then. I was saying that not as a woman that had 7 figures in the bank account and doing all these things. And I certainly wasn't where I am now, both in my business and in my personal and financial life. But I said it then because I knew that money is not so much about a bank account balance as much as it is around your beliefs and your behaviors, right? It's the outward manifestation of what we believe about ourselves inward and what we are able to do with what we believe about ourselves, right? This is why I talk so much about money mindsets, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others, what we believe about the world, about what we believe about what's possible, what we believe about money, right? So many of our beliefs are either conducive to building wealth or not conducive to building wealth. And in fact, I just did a podcast episode about this, so I really encourage you to check that out. But as I was thinking about today's video and what I wanted to talk about, I was like, what are those characteristics that made me feel, even back then, how did I have an inner knowing even back then that I was a woman of wealth? How could I recognize that in other people? Because there's other young women that I come across now and I'm like, oh, that girl is going places, right? Again, regardless of their present level of success or their present finances. And I'm also thinking about this because I just got back from LA. I literally landed at midnight last night, and then I'm here at my studio, at my condo, recording these videos. But I was in LA to celebrate a friend of mine who is doing a book launch, and the book hasn't come out just yet. I promise I'll link to it when it's available, but she invited some of her closest friends to kind of do a table reading with her with the manuscript. And I actually have the manuscript here, which is really cool. But if you want to check her out on Instagram, I will put her Instagram link. Her name is Anissa Getene, and her book is 22 Powerful Principles Any Woman Can Use to Become Wealthy, Insights from the Proverb 31 Woman, right? So Proverbs 31 Woman obviously speaks about the woman in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs 31, chapter 31, verses 10 through 31. So you can check out those verses if you want to know more about that. But I truly believe, obviously, the Proverbs 31 woman was a woman of wealth. It talks about in the Bible how she was wealthy, how she did amazing business dealings, how she brought brought a great reputation to her family. I just think about what are those characteristics that women have today that regardless of where you are in your financial circumstances or even your level of success, if you have these characteristics, girl, know that the wealth is on the way, okay? You are a woman of wealth. And so with that, let's get into it. What are the characteristics that I recognize within myself and that I recognize in others that would make you a woman of wealth? All right, the first characteristic that I recognize in myself and that I recognize in other women of wealth, regardless of whether the wealth has manifested in their lives yet, is this characteristic of cleverness, right? I know I'm a clever person. I know others are clever as well. And I think we really discount how much you need to be sharp on your toes and always kind of like processing and thinking through things in order to build wealth. Why? Because again, wealth is created oftentimes through business, but just our ability to leverage resources in order to create financial abundance for ourselves. And there are actions and different things that we have to take. And so if you are always waiting for other people to move or waiting for other people to tell you what it is that you need to do, again, that's not being quick, right? That's not being clever. That's not being intelligent in your own mind, thinking about what actions need to be done. And so I know I'm always impressed when I come across women, again, regardless of what their personal or financial station is. If I meet a woman and she's clever and I'm like, oh, she's going places, because that is an essential characteristic I believe that you need to build wealth. Again, the Proverbs 31 woman, you read that passage, it talks about how she was quick, how she was clever, how she was able to, assess a field and determine it was profitable, and she does this over here and does this over there. Like there's a speed and agility with the way that she moves and the way that she thinks. She has processing power, right? She can think on her feet, and she can think at a really quick level. Also, if you look up the definition of clever in the dictionary, it'll say skilled at accomplishing things, right? And this is a prerequisite to building wealth, because in order to build wealth, you need to be able to accomplish things for other people, right? By either creating a product or some type of service that other people want, you have to continuously be accomplishing those activities in order to then sell what it is that you have. And even if you're not in a business role per se, but maybe you just want to build wealth through investing, say real estate or the stock market or whatever, you still need to accomplish the ability to, purchase a home. You need to accomplish mastering, learning how to invest in the stock market. It still requires a level of personal achievement that you have to maintain in order to contribute that value either in the marketplace or in whatever arena that you are investing in. So cleverness is very, very important. And I know clever women are well on their way to building wealth. All right, the next characteristic, which kind of goes hand in hand with being clever, is women of wealth are resourceful, right? And again, in Proverbs 31, we see that this woman could make something out of nothing. Very resourceful, was able to create things with her own hands. I find that women of wealth are exactly the same way. They are resourceful, and they often use their cleverness to be resourceful by making a way out of seemingly no way, right? So they're able to figure things out. And so I often get frustrated when people in general, not just women, but I get frustrated when people think that things are impossible or that there's no way, right? There's always a way. We just have to kind of navigate and figure our way out in order to achieve the outcomes that we are looking for. And so whether it's something that maybe you work a full-time job or you're a caregiver for aging parents or you have small children and it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to maintain and do all these other responsibilities and achieve my goals, whether it's in my business or in investing? Again, this is where both being clever and being resourceful comes in handy. And so if you are the type of person to kind of like sit back and just have this woe is me attitude and just believing that it's not possible, you are proving that you are not resourceful. You have to be resourceful in order to build wealth. And so all women of wealth have a level of innate resourcefulness in them. And so if that's something that you need to practice, start getting into the habit of not believing that it's over for you if you don't have ideal conditions, or if the situation is not ideal, or if you don't have all the resources that you think you need. Start to look at the resources that are available to you, whether it's physical resources like whatever, a laptop or a cell phone. I tell people all the time, if you want to get on social media or start a business, half the time all you need is a cell phone. You can send invoices from your cell phone. You can record, videos and social media content from your cell phone. You can make whole courses from your cell phone. Oftentimes your cell phone is a resource enough in order for you to create the wealth that you are looking for. And that's just one example. But beyond tangible or physical resources, again, intangible resources like time, like energy, are you able to create that out of nowhere, right? I remember when when I was working my full-time job, and I would get up super early in the morning, sometimes 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, in order to do my work. But also I got resourceful and I said, man, how can I get more hours in the day? I realized I was driving through traffic and it was taking me 4 to 5 minutes to get to work. So I asked my job, instead of them paying for a parking pass for me to park in the parking lot that was adjacent to our building, I said, can I have a bus pass instead? And they're like, you want a bus pass? Like, you live 30 minutes, from the office. I'm like, yes, I want a bus pass, because with that bus pass, even though it took me a little longer to get to work, it would take me an hour each way, I was able to work on my laptop and I would use the hotspot on my phone, and I was able to get 2 additional hours worth of work in simply by taking the bus to work instead of driving myself. So that's an example of being resourceful. Create a way out of no way, be clever, and think about how you can maximize what you already have to the best of your ability. All right, the next characteristic that lets me know that a woman is a woman of wealth is if she has high standards. And I know this is almost controversial because I say this in an era in our society where we are almost celebrating the lowering of standards, right? It's cool to lower your standards. It's cool to, just do what everybody else is doing. But I know women of wealth have high standards because it's those high standards that are going to drive you to create the wealth in general, right? If you have low standards, meaning you accept anything from anyone, you accept, any old whatever, any old living conditions, any old, I'm making this up, but food, right? That's really important, especially we're also in an era of like GMOs and processed food and all these things that are causing all sorts of diseases in our bodies. Like, we need to, for our own survival, let alone thriving, need to be in a mindset of having high standards for as much as we can possibly, manage in our life, whether it is food, whether it is our living conditions, right? Safety. For me, clothes. I mean, I'm here on camera. Yes, I do, visual work in terms of my business, but even if I weren't on camera, or even if I ran a business that wasn't, forward facing, I like to maintain my own personal style and my own personal level of quality. And no, it doesn't mean that every designer brand is super high quality. There are some many great brands that don't even cost that much that are much higher quality than other brands that you can find. But that's what I'm looking for. I have high standards for how I present myself. I have high standards for my own living conditions. I have high standards for the type of food that I eat, or the type of travel experiences that I want to have, or whatever. I have those high standards, one, because it reflects my own self-worth and my own value and what I think I deserve, right? And what I think I'm personally worth, but also those high standards drive me to always operate at a super high level so that I can create the wealth necessary in order to maintain those high standards. And so this is what I'm saying. If you're a woman who accepts low standards, what drive or motivation do you have to create even the wealth necessary to maintain a high standard of living when you accept a lower standard of living? And so, I talk about this. I have a diatribe video that I just did before this where I talk about, my favorite manifestation strategy for creating my dream life. So you can go ahead and check out that video after this one. But I talk about the importance of maintaining high personal standards for yourself, because you'll often find that if you accept nothing less, then you will do whatever is necessary, ethically, of course. Now, okay, right? I'm not saying do some other things to maintain a high standard of living, but you will do whatever is ethically and beneficial to you in order to maintain those high standards. So having personal high standards is often a precursor to building wealth, because without it, what motivation do you have to build wealth in the first place? And speaking of motivation to build wealth, this is something that I find is not talked enough about, and I might even have to do like a whole series or YouTube series. In fact, let me know if this is something that you would be interested in the comments below. But this characteristic is having an ease with wealth, right? So I know a woman is a woman of wealth. Even if she herself is not wealthy, when she finds herself among money, whether it's people paying her, right? Because this is oftentimes women will sabotage themselves when they first start a business and it starts to take off and they start making money. They will sabotage themselves, and the money will just go wherever. They'll spend it on crazy stuff. They'll give it away. They'll do, poor money management so that they can't retain it, because at their core, they are not at ease with wealth. And so again, this could be a whole series. We talk about identity, mindsets, negative beliefs that people have around money. But again, to be a woman of wealth, and part of having wealth is maintaining it. It's not just making the money, but it's being able to maintain and retain the money. You have to have a level of ease with wealth. And when I say ease with wealth, yes, I'm talking about the actual money. Again, many people, not just women, sabotage themselves because they're not comfortable having money. They think it means something about them. They feel a certain kind of way, and they will subconsciously do things to get rid of the money as fast as it came in. But you also need to be comfortable with the ways of wealth and with the world of wealth, right? So we talk about the ways of wealth. Again, there is a way that wealthy people operate, right? They value their money, they value the people around them, they value their circumstances, oftentimes they value their privacy, right? There's certain things that they value that you will start to value if you are in that world, right? So there's the ways of wealth, right? And there's just the world of wealth, navigating that as you go about your day-to-day. There's a certain way to do things in a certain arena, especially once you have wealth or you are interacting with people who do. And so you'll find, particularly in a business context, as your business starts to become more successful, you will start to interact with more and more wealthy people. And you'll notice, again, the ways of wealth, how they do things, and you'll notice the world of wealth, how they exist, how they live. And you have to have a comfort level with that, because oftentimes women, but just people in general, will sabotage their future successes because they are like in conflict with the world of wealth and the ways of wealth, and they will find that they're not getting invited back, or those people don't want to hire them or don't want to use their services. And I can actually say this happened to me from a hiring standpoint. I won't share too much because I don't want to out the person, because I have empathy. But you know, there was a time that I hired a particular service provider to provide a particular service in my home, and I didn't know, because at the time I was away from home when this service was happening. But I had come home and my neighbor was saying like, hey, you know, this service provider and the employees that she has with her are blocking, you know, my driveway. And, you know, I went to ask her about, or, you know, ring on your doorbell, you know, went to ask, and she kind of gave me like an attitude. And I was floored. I was aghast. I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my goodness, I live in a nice neighborhood. My neighbors have very, very nice houses. Like, I was like, what in the world? And so I confronted the service provider about it. And initially she was very like, kind of flippant and like, oh yeah, he should have, he said this, but I immediately was like, whoa, shut it down. Hold up. We don't do that here. Okay. Like, not to get with you on that level, but this is not that kind of neighborhood. All right. You don't talk to my neighbors that way. Like, we have to live here. Like, this is where we live. Okay. And we plan to live here a long time. And he was in the right. And you're a service provider and you're supposed to be a professional, which you should have said was, right? When he said, hey, my driveway's being blocked, whatever, the proper response should have been this way, and it wasn't. And so eventually she came back to like, oh yeah, you're right. But to me, I was like, again, somebody should do a training on this, because oftentimes there are people who are very talented in what they do, and they aspire to work with certain types of individuals who might want to hire them for their services. Oftentimes, especially if you're charging higher prices, by definition, you are going to be working with successful people. And again, there's a world, there's a way, there's a way they do things, and there's a world that they live in, there's a world that they inhabit, and you need to be comfortable and at ease in that world, because it might not be that your product or your service is poor. It might be that your behavior is such in conflict. You're so not at ease in this world that you are sabotaging future opportunities for you to grow in that world and for you to be hired even more. Which then leads me to the fifth characteristic that I recognize in, you know, women of wealth, and that is a mastery of their emotions. Oh, this could be a whole training on its own. Again, if there's any training that you guys want, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. But mastery of emotions is so important. Mastery of emotions on a variety of levels. Obviously in that, you know, scenario that I just explained, mastery of emotions was not present in that particular arena with the service provider who was, you know, addressing my neighbor. Again, regardless of how you feel, there was a level of professionalism, a level of, you know, personal emotional mastery that was not had at that time, right? So that's an obvious example. But oftentimes there needs to be emotional mastery in terms of stress management. If things aren't going your way, if you can't figure something out, like, can you stay in the pocket, so to speak, right? When things get tough, can you still operate and do what you need to do at a high level, at a level of excellence, even while you're juggling and managing all these different things? I cannot tell you, again, how, as a business owner, like how much drama, right? Oftentimes is happening in the behind the scenes, a vendor who did something, or somebody who stole something from you, or somebody said this, or somebody wants this, or this customer is upset about, like, there's like a tornado happening all the time. And you can't let any of those things take away from you focusing on what you have to do. And again, even if you're not in business, maybe you are just like, hey, I am a stay-at-home mom, but I want to invest in real estate on the side. I want to start investing in the stock market for my family. There might be sick parents, right? Maybe you found out that a loved one or a parent has like, a disease and you're worried about them, or your kid is having challenges at school, or your husband is having drama on the job and he's coming home and bringing that to you. Like, again, there could be personal drama. You have to maintain yourself and you have to display a level of emotional mastery in order to do what must be done in order to build the wealth that you are looking to build. So those are the 5 characteristics that I know. I'm like, girl, if you have those characteristics, right? If you're clever, if you're resourceful, if you have high standards, if you're at ease with wealth and you maintain a level of emotional mastery, I know that it's only a matter of time before the dollars are gonna show up in your bank account. And with that, I actually wanna do 2 things for you. So one, if you're looking to build wealth in terms of a coaching business or even just an online expert business, I'm gonna shout out my signature program here. It will not only certify you as a coach if that is what you are looking for, but it will show you how to come up with your own coaching methodology and how to build a profitable brand from scratch, even if you don't have a following, so that you can become the next big name in your industry. But the cool thing is if you enroll and you mention this video to my enrollment coordinator, so you can click the link below, you'll apply. If approved, we'll invite you to a call with my enrollment coordinators. If you mention this call with my enrollment coordinators, when you enroll in my signature coaching program, we will also give you a program that I recently created called Worthy of Wealth as a completely free bonus, right? So this goes over even more mindset and just mastery to get in the place of truly being worthy of wealth, because that is something that we deal with. Sometimes we don't feel worthy enough for the wealth that we are endeavoring to create, but that can be yours complimentary when you join my signature coaching program and you mention this video to your enrollment coordinator. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you can't wait for my next video, make sure that you are subscribed to my podcast, The Courtney Sanders Show, on both iTunes and Spotify. And if you can't wait for my next podcast episode or my next YouTube video, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok. Yes, I'm finally on TikTok. And my username is CourtneyLSanders on both. Find me on whichever platform you prefer. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.